We have another politician here with us today at Roy Roberts Farm during this Republican get-together, and a lot of people have gathered up here. Jack Kingston, good to see you.
Mr. Deaton, it's great to be here. You know, I'm an Athens boy, and it's always good to get back to these rolling hills.
Right. Yeah, so how's it looking for you?
We feel pretty good about it. You know, we're consolidating the conservative vote, and we're getting a lot of good responses from North to South Georgia, and, you know, working hard, so we feel good.
Okay, well, good. So coming 22nd of July, that will let you know.
Yes, and I think that people are looking for a conservative, and we're fortunate that we're running, in one sense, against somebody who's the most moderate running, and so we feel good about where we are. And I've got a NRA rating of A+, 96% with American Conservative Union, and we think that's real important to people around here.
Well, how do you feel about things going on in Washington, D.C.?
It is absolutely time for a change. I've introduced a contract with America, a 6-point plan that basically reforms government and cuts spending, and we've got to change the status quo.
Right. Well, just today, you know who? He announced that he's pulling all troops out of Afghanistan by 2015. So, why is so much going on across this nation and across the country, across the world? And when troops are needed, he pulls them out.
You know, it's amazing to me also, you do not announce to your enemy when you're leaving, particularly in that part of the country, because the only thing the Taliban will do is lay low until you're gone, and then they're going to make the move. You never announce to your enemy what your plans are.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, don't you think that he is also trying to pull one of his shenanigans and get it in where he can run again?
I'm not sure what President Obama is up to, because I've opposed so many of his policies that sometimes when there's always something else out there that you hadn't thought of. But I've represented 5 out of our 8 military installations. Right now I represent Moody, Fort Stewart, Hunter Army Airfield, and Kings Bay, and I can tell you, I've always wanted to make sure that our military men and women were the best trained and best equipped. I want them to be safe. I want them to get the job done. Ronald Reagan said this about war: we win, they lose, but President Obama has another view of it. It's we participate and then we come home. It's not victory that he has in mind.
Well, he seems to be giving it away, or giving us away to other countries.
You know, Mr. Deaton, I have been to tree planting ceremonies for young men and women who have lost their lives, and they plant a tree at Fort Stewart for every one of the soldiers that have not come back. When you see that face of war, the young families and the parents who are gathered around at that moment, you realize you can't let them die in vain, and you can't just decide we've lost our will to fight. We got to complete this mission.
Well, he's never been in the military, obviously, because he doesn't know really what's going on. He is guessing, and if someone is informing him what's going on, it's the wrong information.
You know, I often ask school kids in my area, because we come from a very strong military area, how many of you ever want the American military to fight a fair fight? And those kids get it. They know it's a trick question. We don't ever want our men and women in uniform to fight a fair fight. We want them to be the strongest, the fastest, the toughest there is. We want them to have the best equipment, the fastest airplanes, the most accurate missiles, the strongest tanks. We want that job done, and we want them to be able to come home. And I think that's what we all owe them. I feel like on Memorial Day and Veterans Day we pause, but we should do it 365 days a year to appreciate the men and women in uniform.
Well, look at what he's done to the veterans.
You know, in our area we've built 4 veteran clinics, because I know what a long line can mean to somebody who's older. It could mean life and death. Right. And we have promised them good health care, and they deserve it.
Well, they do deserve it, because they put their lives on the line.
Absolutely, and we are here because of them. You got to take care of your active duty soldiers, but just as much your veterans and your military retirees. And it is worth the investment, because what we invest in them comes back around tenfold in freedom, and you can't really put a price on that.
Why can't he be, you know, Bill Clinton was, you know, he was asked to leave office because of his love affair. Why can't you people ask him to leave office because of what he has done.
Well, I think that with Bill Clinton, there was a charge of perjury and lying under oath, and President Obama has done a lot of different things, but there's a different standard. I frankly think our best bet is to take the Senate, get rid of Harry Reid, set the stage for taking back the White House.
And Nancy Pelosi.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've shut down Nancy Pelosi in the House, but the job's not going to be finished until we get a Republican majority in the Senate. And that's why I'm leaving a safe seat to enter this fight to turn America around in the U.S. Senate. We've got to change status quo.
Mr. Kingston, I wanted to ask you about another thing. There's so many people in the United States living off the government, and more people living off the government than people working. Why?
Well, you know, in some cases, you got a lot of able-bodied people who have chosen not to work. You know, unemployment has reached something like 20 million Americans these days, and a lot of them have just dropped out of the labor force. What I have done is introduced Contract with America. It's a 6-point plan. 4 of them are about getting America working again, and we got to have workfare over welfare.
Well, but they're not doing any of it. You go to an establishment like Walmart, sit there and watch the people come in, watch them give a green card. It seems like the Mexicans coming across the border, the first place they go to Social Security office and get a green card. And that means they get free medical situation, they get free drugs, and they get, in a lot of cases, free food.
You know, we have to have common sense. On the food stamp bill, I put an amendment in that said if you're an adult and you're able-bodied, then you ought to be required to work if you're on food stamps. Now, that's the first welfare reform measure that's been passed in about 10 years. We got it into law in 10 different states, and we think it's a step forward, but there's a lot more that we need to be doing to get America working again. One of the things is we got to build the doggone Keystone Pipeline. When President Obama was sworn in, gas was $1.90 a gallon. Today it's $3.60 a gallon.
Right.
We have got to have North American energy.
Right. Well, the situation is everything is out of balance, and it's only going one way. And as he said on television, that he has a pen and a phone, and he'll use either one he wants.
We have to stop his executive orders. We have to defund things that he's doing. You know, he keeps fiddling with Obamacare. Now, I voted against Obamacare. I voted over 40 times to defund Obamacare. But still, what he keeps doing is changing the rules, and they're the rules he even made. He doesn't even follow his own rules.
Well, we can understand that because he doesn't know how. I don't know who his advisors are, but the insurance industry in this nation is in shambles.
Yes, sir. We need to have a market-driven, patient-centered healthcare system, one where consumers have the choices, one where doctors are free to make medical decisions without fear of government retribution if they don't follow an exact plan that's set by some bureaucrat in Washington.
Well, I mentioned it to another interview I had earlier, the fact that the situation now is recently, I've had a letter from a medical doctor. They're not accepting my insurance anymore over Medicare, and they're not accepting the patients except periodically whenever the patient makes an appointment to go see a doctor. Of course, it might be 2 weeks down the line.
You know, it's crazy. My daughter, who is 30 years old, signed up for health care through Obamacare, and she went to see a doctor, and they said, we do not recognize that. Fortunately, she's married and was able to get on her husband's policy.
Right.
But, you know, in my case and my wife, we got 4 kids. They're grown up. We don't need maternity coverage. But that's the kind of stuff that they're forcing on people to have.